Just when you think we're reaching the end of the many varieties of dragons, nope, there are some even I have not heard of before. I just kind of stumbled across, and for today's dragon, it's exactly what it's like when you encounter them on the world of Toril. Also, Toril is the only known planet they are found, so let me introduce you to the very, very rare gem dragon subspecies called the Beljuril dragons. First, a note on Beljuril gemstone and its qualities. I'll be quoting in parts directly from the Forgotten Realms wiki pages on these topics, and also quoting from issue number 265 of Dragon Magazine, published in November 1999, just on the cusp of the release of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. This issue of the Dragon Magazine has a lot of volcanic themed content, including a fairly amazing magic user that literally controls tectonic forces and deliberately creates volcanic activity. So as you might guess, the Beljuril dragons are found exclusively in actively volcanic areas. Meanwhile, the gemstones, while they can be found in these dragon lairs, they are most often found in ancient rock formations, such as blue claystone, having formed over a very long period of time out of the minerals found in there. Beljurils are known as fireflashels or fireflashes, and like the dragons, are only found in the Forgotten Realms, where they are highly prized for their unusual properties. They are found as fist-sized, not quite spherical, deep sea green, smooth surfaced gemstones. I should say roughly the size of a human fist. Every hour or so a Beljuril gem flashes some light, without heat or sound, but with a fairly little sparkle of electricity that can be seen from some distance in the dark and a moderate distance even in candlelight or in twilight. The unusual luminous property even works if the stone is kept away from light, so it doesn't just absorb only light. Many sages and specialists have strived to unlock the secrets of the Beljurils over many centuries. It's become invaluable in the currently most widespread and popular method of constructing wands of lightning and other items that deal with the electrical sphere. You can see the shards of Beljuril on the very tip of your wand if you happen to have one handy. The resulting focus of the electrical bolt is stronger and harder to block. It's also a pigment added to ink for scrolls including lightning, and a grounding assister added to iron lightning rods, copper shock sticks, and newly charged blowgun electro stunners just hitting the market in Lantern from the ever-industrious Church of Gond. Obviously, such a rare and useful gem is highly expensive and highly coveted in the Underdark as well as the surface world. The drow owls of several enclaves use it as a lavish decoration, strictly to important places like a wizard's tower, ornate and imposing temple approaches, or inside the profane temples of the cultists and those of the Orthodox Temple of Lolth. There are exceptions, for example temples to Faerun, a high vaulted roof illuminated by a sparkling Beljuril gem to simulate the star-filled night sky overhead, something handy to acclimatize raiding parties before they head up high and climb a long way to reach the surface world. The entryway is often found at the bottom of recklessly excavated dungeons and wells, or naturally deep plunging cave networks that lead back to the surface world. There are many distant, hidden or forgotten places in the world of Toril. It is an endlessly epic wonderland of weirdness, and there are places in the world where humanoids never dared to settle, and other places where they dared but were driven back. These wastelands of glass and wind, lava plains and magma chambers are home to creatures who are part animal and part energy. Some were born of volcanic eruption, others were spawned by the resulting destruction. They require large spaces to live, and their harsh environment admits few other residents. Often their only neighbours are denizens of the inner elemental planes, where these dragons also sometimes travel. Sages collect stories from the few wanderers who encountered them and returned alive to tell the tale. Most information is known only through story and legend. Beljuril dragons feed on, among other things, seismic energy. They can use this energy and are drawn to it, even if it lies deep beneath the planet's surface. If they draw on this energy too deeply, they're feeding sparks, earthquakes, and even volcanic eruptions. Jennifer Titlestack informs us in her Dragon Magazine article that there is an ancient Faerunian legend that tells of a king who wanted a Beljuril dragon as a pet. The curious creature was restless and agreed to leave their volcanic habitat and go into what they call the shallow lands, which is what they call the vast majority of the rest of the world that's not undergoing a lot of seismic activity and has low seismic energy. After a time, the dragon felt a deep hunger that could not be sated. The dragon found the energy so far below the surface that when it was drawn up by the dragon to feed on, the ground buckled violently enough to swallow up the whole kingdom. If Beljuril dragons wandered too far away for too long from the geological hotspots with all that elemental power, their strength will begin to fade away and they will, slowly but inevitably, die. This reliance on such rare and isolated terrain means that they don't really interact with other species that much, and thus other species are safe from the potential destruction these dragons can cause. Beljuril dragons are likely to gravitate towards naturally occurring planet portals that lead to the inner elemented plane of fire. They fit into the ecology of the magma seas and islands dotted with iron watchtowers overlooking the city of brass on the massive dark edifice of volcanic stone, the metal domes of its countless minarets, grand palaces, but Beljuril dragons keep a great distance between themselves and the Afriti if they can. All gem dragons are reclusive. In appearance, the Beljuril dragons are much like their descendants, the obsidian gem dragons, but the attitude and specific quirks of the Beljurils makes them stand apart from their kin. First, they are typically of a chaotic neutral alignment, and their population is so low, almost all of them are of that alignment. An exception would be quite notable. Second, their species is ancient and originally cavorted and swam through the oceans of magma, cooling in the torrential rains and titanic gales of the newly formed planet Toril, which would mean that the gem dragons are much older than the metallic and chromatic dragons, or perhaps an obsidian dragon traveled back in time somehow and the Beljuril dragons are that individual's descendants. The gem dragons probably know the truth. They're exceptionally intelligent, but either they don't care to tell anyone else or they really don't know. The third possibility is that the Beljurils are so rare and uninvolved in the affairs of other dragons that nobody really cares either way, as long as nobody raises the topic within earshot of the obsidian dragon, or as their egos don't abide at being even closely compared to the Beljurils. They consider that quite insulting and respond in a deadly fashion. Chromatic and metallic dragons tend not to care either, as the Beljurils are remarkably non-aggressive for true dragons. You could actually approach them fairly closely without being in danger, other than the extreme risk of the volcanic territory, of course. The dragons, like all gem dragons, have potent psionic powers, along with a total immunity to fire and heat. They inhabit lava lakes formed in the summit of a volcanic eruption. This is an awesome environment where curtains of fire coil and fountains of fire periodically leap around, bubble and jet out of lava lakes. The molten rock is smooth and sinuous. It cools in a dark skin, which is torn and cracked by the currents and the movement of creatures that reside within it. The dragons only migrate from their home territory when there's another eruption about to take place elsewhere. The massive release of seismic energy is a feast for them and also prime new territory for their lairs, and of course producing offspring, and of course for the young dragons to establish new lairs of their own. The young Beljuril dragons are curious about creatures that live in the shallow lands and may bother to learn one of their languages, but they really have nothing in common and not much to talk about. As while they find Shallowlands creatures easy enough to figure out, they quickly grow bored dealing with, for want of a better term, dull-brained animals with no psionic powers. Beljuril dragons don't often develop telepathy and don't bother with empathic or mind manipulation powers. They are physical psychics, able to manipulate molecules, control flame and heat, transform and contain energy, and heal their body. They are also dragons, of course. They have got two forms of breath weapon. One is a burst of seismic energy, which discharges as a spectacular green, violet, or blue elongated orb that sparkles with intense flashing light. This energy absorbs heat, light, and vibratory energy at random and releases a pulse of seismic force that is strangely silent aside from the roaring crackle of electrical bolts it discharges. The seismic blast inflicts a lot of damage but can only be used in areas with a lot of seismic energy to tap into. The second breath weapon is a gout of magma. Most magma has an average temperature that ranges between 1292 to 2372 degrees Fahrenheit, or between 700 and 1300 degrees centigrade. The magma released by the Beljuril dragon may occasionally contain the highly valuable and rare Beljuril gems, which may be scattered over areas where these creatures spend a lot of their time. Which brings us to the main reason why these dragons interact and gain attention from aggressive little humanoids. Treasure, of course, a spectacular variety of raw, uncut precious ores and gems, but these are just pretty things collected from their immediate environment. The real treasure that these dragons value enough to travel away from their volcanic lairs for is star metal meteorites. They really love that stuff, as it assists them greatly in spellcasting and rituals. In Dungeons & Dragons, meteoric metal has fantastic arcane properties, because that is what ancient people believed. Quite a few modern folks believe that also, it seems, as metallic meteorites fetch very high prices from people purchasing them for the purpose of New Age medicine, healing properties of crystals and minerals of all sorts. Woo! Great treasure can be found in Beljuril dragon lairs. The dragons swim among rare ores carried to the lava lakes from the deep within the planet. The lakes are also 50% likely to contain liquid gold, silver and copper in a much larger amount than people would believe. But the problem is that these metals are in a liquid state due to the heat. Precious stone is also fairly plentiful, and of course the fist-sized 5,000 gold coin in value Beljuril gems that can be found studding the rock all over the place. Beljuril dragons display a lava-like coloration with grey or black plates interspersed with red and yellow outlines. Older Beljuril dragons develop a dark grey and violet scale streaked with incandescent blue and green. They range in size from 11 feet long or 3.4 meter long wormlings to 200 foot long or 61 meter great worms. As with all dragons since 4th edition, the general sizes of dragons have been more or less standardized, so you'll know how old a dragon has to be of that species specifically before it gets to this size category, which saves on a lot of confusion. Red dragons reach larger size categories faster and earlier than other chromatic dragons, so they have a justifiable reputation for being brutes and dominant tyrants. But given enough time, most dragon subspecies are able to produce a great worm over 1,000 years old. I post an expanded size chart here for you. If you compare the challenge rating of dragon listings from official sources, you can work out what challenge rating each size category of dragon is, and well, it's not hard. My name is AJ Pickett. I make videos about this and hundreds more full of D&D lore. Have an excellent time including these dragons in your games. Tell your players I said hi. Put me on your game as a non-player character sage by all means. And as always, I'll be back with more for you very soon.